Welcome to This Explainer. So today we're diving right into something absolutely massive, one of the most intellectually daring and paradigm-shifting works out there right now. We're exploring the ideas of thinker Ali Mohammed Al-Shurafa Al-Hammadi, and what he's attempting here is huge. He's basically redefining the very essence of religion, stripping away centuries of politics and conflict to try and rediscover the pure original message of the Quran. Now, why does this matter to us? Well, because how we understand these ancient texts literally impacts how we view global unity and division today. Okay, so let's get into it. To kick things off, we really need to ask a question that kind of flips our baseline assumptions about religious history completely on their head. When you hear the word Islam, what actually comes to mind? For most of the world, it's a specific religion that started up in the 7th century AD, right? But what if that historical classification is entirely missing the point? Al-Hammadi's recent book actually sent total shockwaves through intellectual circles. He makes these incredibly bold claims, and perhaps the most striking is his assertion that the Quran explicitly testifies to the validity of the Christian faith. Now, he's not just saying this to be provocative. It's a deliberate attempt to break through centuries of dogmatic walls. It's an invitation to reopen a comprehensive divine understanding of faith after, ages of really narrow interpretations. Which brings us to Section 1. The core historical question. Let's see exactly how the author separates the true divine definition of religion from the sectarian conflicts of human history. Look at the contrast here. The author is basically arguing that Islam isn't just a label or some closed box for a specific group of people that popped up 1400 years ago. Instead, he zooms way out, transporting the concept into this expansive, cosmic space. He presents it as a universal essence, a unified message carried by literally all the prophets since the absolute dawn of humanity. Moving on to Section 2, Prophets United by Submission. How does he actually back up such a monumental claim? Well, he doesn't look outward. He opens the Quran itself and points directly to verses that millions read every single day, but maybe fail to fully grasp in their historical context. If you map out the timeline of the prophets strictly using the text of the Quran, it's like a giant puzzle coming together way before the 7th century. Just look at this timeline. We've got Abraham, Moses, Solomon, the disciples of Jesus, spanning millennia, right? And every single one of them is explicitly identified in the text as Muslim. Let's actually look at the exact verses. Take this specific verse from Surah Yunus. Here, Moses is addressing his people. He literally tells them to rely upon God if you should be Muslims. Think about that for a second. The term Muslims is being used here long centuries before the Prophet Muhammad was even born. And it's not just Moses. We see the exact same thing again here with Solomon. He uses the precise same terminology in Surah An-Nam. This goes to prove something really profound. In its original Quranic context, Islam is an existential stance. It's a free response to the call of truth, rather than just some mere group identity or historical label. Then the text does something incredibly powerful here. It pulls Abraham entirely away from all historical classifications. It basically strips away all the labels that human history tried to stick on him and returns him to his original universal state of faith, identifying him simply as one inclining toward truth, a Muslim. Even the disciples of Jesus, the Al-Hawariyun, echo this exact same sentiment. By melting away all these temporal boundaries, these verses totally transform our understanding of faith. It stops being a timeline of competing religions and becomes this single, continuous, unbreakable unity based entirely on absolute submission to God alone. So, Section 3, redefining true religion, which naturally leads us to a pivotal question. If Abraham, Moses, Solomon, and the disciples of Jesus were all explicitly called Muslims in the text, then what is the true original meaning of that word? Here is the real game changer. The author points out that Islam is a universal, existential state. It's a condition of the heart rooted in total submission to the Creator. It is not just a historical religion or a political identity. By redefining this, Al-Hammadi takes religious affiliation away from human-made divisions and shifts it back to a pure adherence to supreme divine truth. When the Quran states, indeed, the religion in the sight of Allah is Islam, it established this concept over 1,000 years ago. It essentially declared a single, unified divine source for all religion. There aren't multiple competing divine truths out there. There is just one continuous message. This stark contrast brilliantly highlights the tragic difference between historical religion and divine religion. Human history is kind of weaponized religion, turning it into this fractured thing tangled up with politics and conflict. But divine religion, as it was originally intended, is like the sun, just one unified message serving as a light for all humanity since the dawn of revelation. And the text itself totally acknowledges this human failure. It points out that the roots of our divisions are entirely human. The conflicts we've seen throughout history, they stem from our own flawed understanding, our jealous animosity, and our tampering, not from the original, pure divine message itself. The light was unified. It was humanity that splintered the prism.
Okay, Section 4, Universal Values and Peace. It's a beautiful theory, for sure. But how does this massive paradigm shift actually apply to our deeply fractured world today?
Well, instead of using these texts to drive us apart, the author highlights that the original text is fundamentally a call to unity, come to a common word. It's a literal plea for shared human values, recognizing that underneath all the historical labels, the foundational belief is absolutely identical. When you view religion through this lens, true faith becomes intrinsically linked to social peace. It becomes an engine for security, mutual respect, and the universal well-being of all humanity. It stops being a boundary wall keeping people out and starts being a bridge. Strip away the historical baggage, and you get these 4 core Quranic values. First, absolute justice is the very foundation. In fact, if a practice contradicts justice, it is literally, by definition, not Islam. It's all about achieving silm, or peace, and returning to fitra, our innate, natural human disposition towards goodness. These core values inherently reject any practices of violence, coercion, or division. So entering into Islam doesn't mean joining some historical faction. As this verse beautifully puts it, it literally means entering into a state of total peace. Peace with your creator, peace with yourself, and peace with the entire society around you. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Returning to the Source. This is really the ultimate goal of Al-Shurafa Al-Hammadi's intellectual project, a direct call to action for the modern mind. The whole core of his work is an invitation to rediscover the faith exactly as it was originally intended in the text, not as centuries of human history and political maneuvering have warped it. It's a profound invitation to clear away the inherited dogmas, those man-made barriers, and rediscover the pure, uncorrupted relationship between humanity and the divine. It's all about finding the original signal amidst all that historical noise. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. We all have a choice in how we understand our shared spiritual heritage. Are we going to let human history and tribalism keep dividing us? Or will we have the courage to unite through this single, universal truth? The journey to find the truth is rarely the easiest path, but man, it is absolutely the most important one we can take. Thanks so much for exploring this with me.
مؤسسة رسالة السلام العالمية، رسالة إنسانية لعالم أكثر سلاماً.